So what do you want to talk about tonight? Actually, to the listeners out there, it's only two of us, just me and Kevin. Just decided to space heater chat this up. Yes, this is our first recording for December, Wednesday evening, December 13th, 2023. Hey, we're in the final couple weeks of 2023. And as I said, we're just deciding to space heater chat this because, well, Kevin and I went to the movies last night.
Yes. Yes, we did.
Yeah. Well, we went to see what is probably only going to be for 1 week the top movie in North America. Right up.
How Do You Live?
Yeah, that's the Japanese title, right? And I think when we talk about a movie like The Boy and the Heron, or How Do You Live as it's known in Japan, yeah, everything is worth a discussion surrounding this film, surrounding Miyazaki's latest, and maybe his last. You know how Miyazaki tends to be about that, right?
How old is he now? Let me check this.
82, I believe. Don't quote me.
Let's see. How old is Hayao Miyazaki? Yeah, 82.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, if he lives as long as the average Japanese person, or I guess even a little above that, theoretically could be 110 and still be kicking.
So maybe there's a couple movies left in him.
That's the power of the Japanese diet. So theoretically, there could be one more movie.
Yeah, apparently he's working on it too.
Oh, seriously?
Yes, according to some reports, he's thinking about it. It's at least in planning stages of some sort.
See, I'm curious as to how many people they hired to do anything. Because if I'm not mistaken, over the years, they did have to let go of a lot of their full-time staff just because they weren't working on anything for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of them apparently did go to the studio that works with Makoto Shinkai.
Oh, Comics? Comics Wave? Is that what it is?
I don't know if it's still Comics that does the newer films.
You might want to look that one up too, right?
I don't think they've done any work since, You're My Favorite Foot Fetish movie, The Garden of Words.
Well, let's see. Yeah, no, it's produced by Comics Wave Films. Yeah, Suzume is listed as a Comics Wave.
Oh, it's still them, eh? Okay.
Yeah. It's not Makoto Shinkai's, but then again, it's not as if Ghibli belongs to Miyazaki either. Right? So, yeah, everything concerning this movie is a point of discussion to me. This was a really different film for Miyazaki. Not necessarily for Studio Ghibli and the stuff they can come up with. Certainly, but for Miyazaki. And I know we'll get to that a bit later. But
okay, yeah, it is. You're right. It is still them all the way through.
Oh yeah.
The only thing that wouldn't have been would be his earliest work. So
because
it was Cat and Voices of a Distant Star.
Because it was just done on his computer.
Because that was all him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, Place Promised afterwards. Yep, all Comics.
From that point forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So I the whole bit with Miyazaki and this is probably where Miyazaki, I think, really lays his own feelings bare, too. Right. But as I said, where do you want to start with this? Do we start I said, even the title is worth a discussion because in Japan, yes, it's known as How Do You Live?
How Do You Live?
Yeah, and it's also the name of a novel which serves as the inspiration for the movie and was a
Yes.
favorite of Miyazaki. But
Yes, by Genzaburo Yoshino.
yeah, but it's not a direct adaptation of it. A lot of the points of that, a lot of the themes of that novel, which was written pre-World War II. And that's worth noting because the movie itself, The Boy and the Heron, takes place in the midst of World War II.
And for those wondering, the book is available at most book retailers.
Yes, there is an English translation out there. I should have bought that during the last Indigo sale. But I'll take some.
It go on sale more often than manga. I wouldn't worry.
Yeah, I'd give it a read, just because I do now want to know how much it differs. The two stories are fairly different from each other, but as I said, they hold different plot points. Themes are very similar.
So, are we going to go into spoiler territory at all? Because if we are, we should give the obligatory warning.
Okay. Siren. It's not there. There might be some spoilers, so I guess it might be worth noting.
Sure. So, this is your only warning if we do spoil anything.
We'll put it in the synopsis for the episode, wherever we end up putting it, whether it's online or in the summary for the whenever people download it to their favorite podcatcher.
Yeah, because apparently in the novel, it's his dad who dies, not his mom.
Yeah, and as the title of the novel implies, it is about coming to terms and moving on, right? That's in this general sense. Sorry,
he apparently betrays one of his friends at some point in the film, or not in the film, in the book, and he turns to his uncle for advice.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if the uncle in the book would be the same as the grand uncle
that's depicted in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. That's where I said. Yeah, and then you never get the sense of there wasn't a real betrayal moment. I mean, I'll be curious to read the book when the time comes. It's just that there's no real betrayal moment. I never got that sense in Boy and the Heron, the film. But it is him coming to terms. And how do you have you read the book, by the way? Have you read How Do You Live?
I have not.
Okay, you just read basics of the synopsis, right?
I just went to our Canadian Bookstore Overlord's website to read the synopsis, yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's more like Boy and Herron goes all fantasy world on us, right? Where How Do You Live? I don't get that sense, but as I said, I haven't really read it, and I only have a basic synopsis, but it's just that never really comes out to me. Right?
Especially because we had no clue how this movie was going to be, because Toho and Ghibli decided to not do any press for this movie. And no trailer, just the poster of the Herron. That was it. Mm-hmm. And maybe they did release the cast very close to the date, and that was basically it.
Yeah,
because, they say they were too old to go through the promotional circuit, whereas I was saying the whole time, my thought was that they thought that, we're Studio fucking Ghibli, we don't need to do jack shit, people will come and see us anyway.
Yeah, it sells itself. It sells itself.
Yeah.
There's all of its every single reason could probably be true.
And yeah, it's probably true, but we're probably right too.
They can puff their chest out. They can flex if they want.
Yeah,
being who they are.
They haven't made a good film since Spirit. I'm joking. I don't truly mean that. Well, sort of.
Yeah, sort of. But they can flex if they want.
Well, okay, I should correct myself. I don't think Miyazaki has made a good film since Spirited Away. Because I love Poppy Hill, which was actually Goro, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's his only good film. because I haven't seen his one or two other ones.
Yeah, they got
And
panned.
I think Princess Kaguya is really good, which was fuck. I always forget the other guy's name.
Isao Takahata.
Yeah, Isao Takahata. Yes,
And
that was his last work before he.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him later.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about him later for sure. Right?
And did I like anything else after?
Yeah,
I kind of liked Wind Rises, but I can't say I loved it like the other two I mentioned.
Yeah, but anyway, it's just as I said, and I think, and the only thing known was the poster and the title was the same as that novel.
How do you live?
How do you live? And people start to think it's an adaptation. I wouldn't doubt people, although that was the initial thinking when just the poster came out. That might have been what the public thought. And then this comes around, which still turned out to be, as I said, worth the watch. But it's certainly a lot different from what you would expect from Studio Ghibli in general. Miyazaki specifically, although they've been down those paths before, but this is going even deeper, right? Mm-hmm. It was fascinating. It was depressing. It was dark. It dealt with some very heavy issues, right?
Yeah, because, the kid loses his mom in the hospital.
That's how it starts.
Which is like burning in flames. Mm-hmm. It's a very visually striking scene because you see him running towards the fire and it's like a big blur. That was a very impressive scene visually.
Well, visually, and we talked about this after the movie. It almost felt like there was some computer generated animation there. I'll stop sort of saying CG, but well, CG means computer generated, doesn't it?
I could believe that it was still all hand drawn.
It's just that's what struck me, and obviously, Ghibli films have been in the vanguard of just going hand drawn, sell art. It's just that's what grabbed me about some of the animation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So especially some of the early scenes like that. But that's one of the things that struck me as this being just different, right?
Yeah,
but it had some it had your typical, like, while I say this is different, the overall vibe, the overall feel of the visuals was so trademark, typical Ghibli. Character designs are what you'd expect. So it was quintessential in many respects as well. It was a quintessential Ghibli film. At least when you on the outside, when you look at it. But as I said, topics are just deep. Right?
Yeah, because the kid also has to adapt to his new situation. Because his dad marries his aunt.
Yeah, basically his mom's younger sister.
And she's already pregnant.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that didn't take very long.
And and that also is the part of the focus of the movie, his relationship with his now stepmom, right?
Because the way his mom, or his new mom, I should say, Natsuko, grabbed his hand when they were in the cart. It's like, oh, do you feel it kicking? I'm like, whoa.
Whoa, we're that far already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
see, this is a Ghibli film, so we know it's going to be wholesome and it won't go in a weird direction. But I still kind of like, whoa.
Yeah. No, as I said, it took you. It it took you down spots that you wouldn't have expected it to. Not tastelessly. It was always tasteful. Don't worry about that. Like, you know that he wouldn't do anything like that.
Well, yeah, it's Studio Ghibli.
It's Miyazaki. He kind of despises the way anime has gone over time.
Well, can you blame him? Like, anime has gotten more and more risque to the point where, like, man, they're really pushing those boundaries over what's allowed on TV nowadays.
Yeah. But it's a weird... but I think it's, as I said, it's also maybe a lot of his feelings, a lot of Miyazaki's own feelings laid bare at that point, right?
What kind of feelings do you think were laid bare?
Obvious themes of mortality. I mean, this was... Like, people will always say this is maybe a reflection as to where he knows he's eventually going to be, which is not there.
Dead, yeah.
Yeah. Well, how he looks at himself, how he looks at things afterwards. And the other part is maybe this the movie was also produced in the immediate years after Isao Takahata died. He died in 2018. Right? Much of the production of the movie, by all accounts, happened in the immediate years after that. And through the pandemic, I suppose.
I always kind of imagined Hayao Miyazaki just doing it cell by cell by himself because they didn't have enough funds to justify hiring more people because they just weren't doing stuff regularly. Because the Ghibli Museum's revenues can only do you so much, especially when your longtime friend and producer wastes all that money on his Southeast Asian girlfriend.
Wow, we're going to go down that rabbit hole now, aren't we?
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I lost a lot of respect for Toshio Suzuki after I heard about that.
That sounds funny. Lie. I just laugh when I hear that bits and pieces of that story. I haven't really read up on it, but yeah.
He fired his successor because his successor had the balls to call him out on it.
Oh, that, yeah, okay.
How does that make you look?
Well, now there's nobody else. And now there's nobody else. And maybe these are the type of things that eventually forced Studio Ghibli to sell, to be bought out by TV. It was Nippon TV, wasn't it?
I believe
memory serves me correct, right?
I believe so.
So. Yeah, it's just it's Miyazaki's reflection as to how he looks at his legacy at this late stage in his career in life, I think. And I get it. We're probably reading a lot into this. But I know a lot of people find a lot of critics have said, and I agree, this is Miyazaki's most personal work.
More than The Wind Rises?
Which I don't know as well, so. But they tend to be more introspective, and they tend to be a little bit more. Well, I don't know what was the tone of Wind Rises, and I know that's kind of war. That's set during the war too, right?
That one was pretty deep in the sense that not a lot of humor, not spiritual. Well, nothing supernatural happens. It's a very grounded work.
Well, and this was pretty supernatural.
Yeah.
That. Maybe I should have watched that. It's on Netflix. I'll just maybe put that next on the queue after finishing the final episode of Cyberpunk Edge Runner.
It's, I like the film. there is a bit of contention with how some people see it, especially in Japan. But I thought it was fine. I don't think it was great. Like, I didn't think it was like mind-blowingly awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Because you wouldn't compare The Wind Rises to Totoro. You would compare it more along the lines of other films such as Grave of the Fireflies or
I
Only
knew that one would
Yesterday.
come up. Yeah, I
You
knew
compare it to those tone of films by the
Grave,
studio.
Grave of the Fireflies is a comparable. Was a comparable also to The Boy and the Heron, because it's set in the midst of World War II. And it's dark and it's depressing, but I don't think anything will. And I get it. It's not Grave. Grave was not a Miyazaki film, but I don't think anything will come that Ghibli does and Miyazaki does will come close to to the type of thing, the type of feelings that Grave of the Fireflies will evoke.
Yeah, that was a Takahata film, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and something else. Yeah, I think Takahata was more capable of the downright leave you in a pile of tears type movies.
Yeah, I left Grave of the Fireflies just very sullen and quiet.
Yeah, I was shaken.
Even though I knew what happened, I had been spoiled.
And that's
so the impact wasn't as strong as I wished it was, because I knew what that stupid kid did.
I'm
trying, two-thirds of the way through. Yeah,
I'm trying to remember where I saw it. If it was
although
on,
he's young, but still. But anyway,
I'm just trying to remember how I saw it. It was on television, I think, the first time I saw it. But it might have been. Yeah, I think. Was it a Teletoon? I'm trying to remember.
No way Teletoon would have aired that.
I'm trying to remember the circumstances by which I saw it for the first time. And that was like 25 some odd years ago, like at least.
Would have been VHS, right, Mike?
I'm just trying to remember. I cannot say I remember.
I'm confident it did not air on Canadian
television.
Well, not in the time that I would have
kept up with
paying attention to this kind of stuff, because like around the mid 2000s when I paid heavy attention to what was airing on TV, because I followed Xanon a lot, and just
could it have been on like on something like Showcase, if not Teletoon?
Teletoon didn't really air anime for most of its life.
Well, aside from showing manga entertainment features,
other than like the late 90s stuff, and then then you have the odd fringe cases like Carp Captors, Sakura, and Spider Riders, and that other one. I think they aired Bakugan, actually.
Yeah. So
the Fireflies. Well, we can keep on talking while I look this up.
Yeah, but where was I on this? Like Miyazaki and him seeing his end and seeing what his legacy will be further down the road. Does he? I think he's at peace with the idea that he's at peace with the world not being where he wants it to be, like the world in general, and and maybe his own legacy as an animator. Like there's really nobody to hold up the mantle for him the way he likes to animate and direct movies. Right? He, like I said, he despises anime the way it is, and he's at peace with the idea that's the direction.
So if it aired in Canada, it would depend on if we had access to Turner Classic Movies.
TMC?
TCM or
TCM.
Or the international channel. I don't think that was Canadian. I think that was only US based.
Okay. I'm just still trying to remember the circumstances by which I originally watched it. Maybe it was a tape I rented from Comic Den back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to remember. Amazing movie, by the way. That goes
It's a
with
good film, yeah.
yeah. It's a very thought provoking film. That's what this was. This
It's
was
gut wrenching at times
yeah.
too.
Well, which one? Grave?
Yeah.
What do you mean at times? It's all the way through, dude. For me, because you can see it. You can see it all. Like for me, you could kind of see that it's ending all coming pretty quickly. Like it didn't take like you knew this wasn't going to end well.
Okay, so I'll just quickly talk about this. So this is major Grave of the Fireflies spoilers. Let a few seconds to let people bail out if need be. So, okay, knowing that the boy abandoned his little sister, having known that, I was just dreading it the whole time. Like up to, maybe starting at when we hit the second, third minute, I was like, okay, it's gonna happen at some point. When's it gonna happen? And just see, and then you kind of it doesn't feel like there was a lot of build up to that happening from what I vaguely recall. It's been quite a few years since I've seen it now, but it kind of just happens in my mind. Maybe I'm misremembering, but it just kind of happens.
Okay, I saw I just saw it as a maybe I see it the other way. It is I saw her. I remember her declining. It was Setsuko. That was the little girl's name.
Yeah, because you would think that, oh well, it's his little sister. They're gonna stick together no matter what. Okay, the kid's name's Satan. Now that I'm looking it up, but then you also realize that like he's like what 9 or 10 or something or 11. So it's like, yeah, what can you do? Like if you were in that situation, like what would you really do? It's like it's so hard.
Yeah,
You can't even imagine what you can do.
Yeah. Well, so do you really condemn it?
That's the thing. Yeah, you can argue it either way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and then there's no wrong answer to that. And then if you think there is, try being in the kid's shoes.
Yeah, right. Because like we could all say like, "Oh no, I would not abandon my little sister as an 11-year-old," but
or younger.
But it's like, are you sure about that?
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. So Miyazaki's thoughts on Miyazaki and his mortality. His thoughts of losing Takahata. They were close, right?
So, would you say Mahito is Hayao?
I guess. I mean, we and to talk about it and to want to talk about more. Well, we have committed that we'll give some spoilers, right?
Wait, so is the Herron Takahata there?
I would have thought the Herron. I don't know. As I said, it talks about loss, but Mahiro's mom is not Takahata in many ways. So maybe it's just but I think just loss in general was a driving force as Miyazaki did this, and the fact that that he won't be there is another driving force in this, and what he leaves behind. How do you live?
Now that you say that, perhaps Mahito's mom just represents Hayao's happiness, and that there was a point where his happiness just died, and now you see Mahito even as like a 12-year-old or whatever, how old he is, he's already kind of brooding, and you could even say curmudgeon-y in some aspects. Just being very sullen.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't change. That's the interesting part. That doesn't change throughout the movie and at the very end. Right? His feeling, his tone, his attitude, you just never got the sense it changed. Like he goes through some, like the movie, the adventure can be at times traumatic, but it doesn't change him. He's still approaching it with that attitude, the attitude that basically solidified itself the day his mother passed away. And it does, it jumps around a little bit through roughly 5-6 years, I believe. Right?
His dad is Toshio Suzuki. Because he's all business.
Yeah, he's all business and probably and with a bunch of women. But yeah.
But hey, he still stuck up for his son when he needed to.
Yeah, he did. Good for him.
Yeah, I respected that.
Yeah,
he's like, I will find that kid. You tell me who did this to you. Mm-hmm. Because at some point in the film, he gets into a scuffle with the other kids. Mm-hmm. You don't see any dispute happening. It's just, you just suddenly see kids kind of steering right to like them fighting in the fields.
And it's a class, and it might be a class thing because Mahito comes from a good family and a well-off family. Both sides of the family.
It's assumingly a class thing.
Yeah, it's assumingly. It's probably safely assumed to be a class thing.
Yeah.
Right. But it's just, yeah. And
old man pride when you hurt yourself with a rock so much that you bleed that. Like, he bled a lot. Holy shit.
Yeah, that was amazing. That must have been a hell of a self-inflicted wound.
I'm like, you should be dead.
That much blood?
With that much blood, yeah.
It was coming out of the temple. It looked like it was coming out of he hit himself in the temple.
I'm like, Mahito, how did you even make it home?
Why? Well, that is not a good thing to do. Well, even at the best of times.
Normal kids would have died with that much blood loss, I feel.
But yeah, it's like that. I think he hit the artery. Dude, I think he hit the temporal artery there. So, like, it just, but these are just the things that just stuck out about this movie. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, like, by and large, the reviews are positive, by and large, but there's some criticisms too. I think some people found the narrative at times jumping around, a bit erratic.
I felt that way too.
Okay. I guess in my case, because I've gotten used to watching shows like Highlander, like both the movies and the television series, it loves to set its contexts in flashbacks. So the idea of telling its story by jumping around in time, it didn't really bother me. And and for the most part, I was able to keep up with the plot and the story.
Okay.
So that part didn't really bother me because I've gotten used to those type of, flashbacks or those type of narratives, right? Telling the order a bit out of order, so to speak, or time skipping in this case, too. But what was some of the other criticisms out there of the movie? Like, what do you think? What's other criticisms you saw?
I'll be honest, I haven't looked up any critic reviews.
Mm-hmm.
since watching it.
I know as of this evening, there was an episode of ANN After Show with Lindsay Loveridge, and I know she wasn't the biggest fan of the movie. She was fairly critical of it, but I forgot exactly what it was. So I'm just looking at some of this reviewed. Boy, visually complex, 9 out of 10. Yeah. I'm just looking at this. Gentle, maybe a bit slow in its feel. Visually impressive and visually complex. I liked. That's a good way to put it. That's what the IGN review was.
Interesting.
Yeah, but as I said, it was also a lot of people think of this as Miyazaki's goodbye, and thought it was just his way of saying goodbye to the industry, right? So nakedly bidding adieu to us and to the crumbling kingdom of dreams and madness that he'll soon leave behind. This is such a great line. David Ehrlich of IndieWire. This is such a great line in the review. Miyazaki so nakedly bidding adieu to us and to the crumbling kingdom of dreams and madness that he'll soon leave behind, that it somehow resolves into an even more fitting goodbye than the wind rises. One graced with the divine awe and heart-stopping wistfulness of watching a true immortal make peace with their own death. That is a hell of a choice of words. Yet, I come away. That's if there's one sentence there that I think encapsulates what I think would be Miyazaki's own feelings. That's probably it. Especially the whole crumbling kingdom line, right? Both because now it's at this point when I read that line and the way I'm thinking about Miyazaki's legacy, it isn't just about anime in general, it's Studio Ghibli too, just specifically. Right? We talked about Goro. He ain't taking over. We know that.
Well, not while he's alive.
No. Or he shouldn't anyway. At least that doesn't seem to be the plan. And we know, and we've talked about how on this numerous times on this podcast, and probably it's become even more well documented that Hayao and Goro Miyazaki do not have the greatest relationship.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what's a good comparison?
Tough love isn't putting is too. It would be too kind because you don't know if there was any. There's respect.
It's kind of like Baki Hanma and Yujiro Hanma.
One way to put it. But
it's not really. Not that accurate of a description, but that was the first kind of father-son hate dynamic that first came to my mind.
But that's what it is, right? I mean, Goro. Like we talk about how Miyazaki really doesn't speak highly of Goro, and he acknowledges he wasn't a great parent. And Goro frankly just agrees. Gives Hayao no marks as a parent, but boy is he a hell of a filmmaker. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean in the drive to be Hayao Miyazaki, you have to kind of sacrifice a few other things about your life, I guess.
Yeah, like your happiness and the happiness of your kin. Yeah.
Yeah. The happiness of your family. And the rest of the world is grateful. And now and maybe now entertained by the dynamic that just exists there in the aftermath. But yeah, as I said, it's a reflection of a lot of things about as Miyazaki approaches the end. He understands it. I think he understands. He attempts to make an understanding of his mortality. He probably does, and he probably has a good grasp of it at that point. And I think as I said, he's just come to terms with it. That's the overarching sense I get from watching this. Kind of like and he just has and that's the attitude. Like Mahito's attitude is Miyazaki's attitude as he moves forward. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has a very it's just a tone. Even the ending kind of gives off that way. This whole ordeal is over. We just move on. That's how do you live. That's how it ended.
Yeah, it was a very quick denouement.
Yeah, it's a
very quick denouement. It just kind of ended.
Yeah, there's no real epilogue. There is no, and they lived happily ever after. It's more like, and they lived.
And he now has a baby half brother.
Yeah, well, by
toddler.
That point, yeah.
Kid's taller sized.
Yeah.
And he's cute.
Yeah. That's how it goes. And I think that's how Miyazaki sees how society will go after he's gone. And that's how Miyazaki will see how Studio Ghibli will be after he's gone. It just continues. Maybe not in the form it is. Maybe not anywhere close to the form that he would have liked. But it will go. Maybe a bit crumbled. Right? The world is fucked up at the moment. Studio Ghibli has sold itself to Nippon Television, to a corporation. It's gone corporate. Well, how will that affect its vision? But there'll be a vision. That's essentially the message. If Miyazaki has a message in all of this. What did I get carried away?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I think that's just there. Like in recent years, like the documentary. I still that 10 years with Miyazaki documentary, which is still on NHK World. Like we now know over time in recent years, like over the last 5, maybe 10 years, how grumpy a guy he really is. Probably not the most pleasant guy to be around on a daily basis. But boy, he's a hell of a movie maker, right?
Yeah.
Brilliance comes at a cost. Like they say that about that's the case with every genius, right? They may not be the most, they might be fascinating, they might be weird, they might be unbearable to deal with. And the feeling may be mutual. Right? This is probably like, is Miyazaki saying, basically giving a middle finger at times to what's about to the future? Does it feel that way sometimes?
Quite possibly.
Right? I mean, it's okay. And maybe that's a coping mechanism too. Like the world isn't going to be perfect. You can try and make your way in. You just try and make your way through it. And I guess this is just Miyazaki's message. This is how I just did it. Once again, this is how I lived. So there's, I guess that's just, it was just a fascinating movie but to me, it was fascinating because it's a watch for me because of what I know, what we've learned about Hayao Miyazaki, the person, in recent years. That's what just made this movie such a watch for me because, like everyone said, it's him laying himself bare at this point in his life. But what we've learned about his life in recent years makes this movie to me even more poignant.
So, who do you think the parakeets represent? And the pelicans, who are they?
The world at large, whether that's the regular world or the anime world.
Huh. I never could quite wrap around who those represented, actually. I was trying to think about it for a while, but then I was like, oh, you know what? Not 100% sure.
No, and he won't really let on. I think some of the line is, I think one, what was it? I'm just going to, on the wiki, when they first, I'm just going to try and pull up the line from the wiki because it was actually a really, really interesting one, right? There was an interesting line about when the movie was first screened to anybody out there, right? Because it was screened to a few people in Japan, but with the express agreement that nothing be really spoiled to the public, right?
When was this?
I'm just trying to find the line, though. I'm just trying to find where that's noted, right? In May, film, Princess Kaguya. And I'm trying to look this up now. Right? Music reception. And film was pre-sold overseas with no concrete date. Yeah, worried. Yeah, there was just a line, and I'm trying to find exactly where, where it would be mentioned, right?
Well, I'll just say I took a quick look at the ANN review of the film back when it came out in Japan. And apparently, Toshio Suzuki stated back in 2017 on a Japanese TV program that the film was for Miyazaki's grandson, a way of saying Grandpa is moving on to the next world soon, but he's leaving this film behind.
That's sort of a thing that also that's sort of a theme in How Do You Live, because it's the uncle kind of documents everything and at a point gives it to the boy, right? With the intention to give it to the boy at a point, right? So, yeah, really dark, really complex, mature, really, and fairly mature, right? It isn't. I can't call it a kids movie either. It really isn't, or at least you have to. It's very, very thought provoking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where the who opted to show cast and crew were kept largely undisclosed after the preview screening held in late February 2023, where strict confidentiality measures were in place. A message from Miyazaki was read out following the credits saying, "Perhaps you didn't understand it. I myself don't understand it."
Interesting.
That's, I think, probably the most striking line. He knew it would be opened into interpretation, and like open to a lot of interpretation, and he agrees, and he seems quite fine with you letting that discussion go a bunch of different ways. Because every argument probably is true. It's valid. There isn't a wrong answer to him in all of this. And maybe that's what makes this movie so good in many ways. And so different. Like directors, artists, authors, playwrights, as they move, like their works are also a reflection of their emotional and mental state at that point too. Are they not? I would think that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, like I said, this is where Miyazaki is now. He knows he's near the end. So these are what he wants to say before that time comes. He's starting to say the things that he wants to say. So he no longer needs the commercial success, or maybe he doesn't care anymore. So maybe he just wants to do whatever he could do now on his own terms. This was a very personal movie. And it really does make me want to read the actual book itself. Like the original book that inspired it. Read How Do You Live? Just so I know maybe some of those themes that Wood has stuck in his head as he went about this project. Anyway, those are, I don't know what else to really say. Just in relation, as mentioned, in terms of reception and all that, this was the number one movie of last week here, basically the first full week of December. This was the number one movie in North America. It'll likely be overtaken this weekend by Wonka.
That's fine.
That's fine, just the way it is. It was a slow week. I get it. The Golden Globe Award nominations were announced earlier in the week, and The Boy and the Heron did get 2 noteworthy nominations: Best Animated Feature and Best Original Score for Joe Hisaishi.
Pretty good music, gotta say.
Well, you know what you're getting there. Maybe with a lot of things. While I said this is quite different for Studio Ghibli and a Miyazaki film, you knew what you were getting. And you can say that about the music too. Right? Anyway, that's just some thoughts. It's an easy recommendation. If you get the chance to see it in theaters, see it. Or wait up for Netflix. Because you know it'll end up there sooner or later too.
Yeah, I'd say it was a pretty decent watch.
Yeah, it is. It was worth it. And maybe just worth mentioning, we did see this on a Tuesday night here in the West End of Toronto. How would you describe that crowd in the theater that night? I mean, we didn't mention it. I guess it's one of those things we should have mentioned at the top. But what was your impression of the audience we saw that with?
I think it's skewed like young to like middle age-ish.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a little bit more across the board than it could have been because it's anime,
yeah,
right? Because yes, you did pull out your typical anime fandom. You pulled out a lot of our fandom.
But, and then you pull up the Miyazaki enthusiasts too.
Yeah, you do pull up the Miyazaki enthusiasts, which aren't necessarily anime fans, and maybe that was that middle-aged couple we saw as we came up, as we went up the staircase there.
Yeah.
Right? Who were there. So it was that type of crowd. It was a very, different crowd. Chances are that middle-aged couple wouldn't have been there to watch Kaguya.
No, I doubt it.
Or what's the other one? The fire one. Yeah, I forgot its name now. You're one of your favorites, right?
Which one?
Not Daigo. It's another fire one though.
It was about fires? This is a movie?
Yeah, it was a movie.
This was an anime movie?
Yeah, it was an anime movie in 2019, I believe it was.
2019?
Was it 2019?
Oh, are you thinking Promare?
Yeah.
Oh, it probably Promare, yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
That came back to theaters, I think, this year for a brief run.
Oh, well,
again.
They can do whatever they want. So
it's such a good film. Oh
yeah, parallel. One note I did. One other note I put up, and I guess we'll acknowledge this, and it probably is just a throwaway thought. Parallels with Suzume. Suzume's on Crunchyroll. I'm not totally sure about that. I mean, it's it's a kind of an adventure, and it's set after a disaster. I guess that's the only parallel. It's about in many respects finding yourself at that point after tragedy. Having very, very supernatural guides in the process. I think it's just more of, I think how the two differ from each other is because of where their respective directors sit in life at the moment, and that kind of emoted itself into the tone, the rest of the tone. Right? We've already said Miyazaki sees the end. Makoto Shinkai just continues. He has a lot still to being much younger, and that's just maybe trying to give the same themes to somebody at different stages of their careers and lives. Just a thought, though. And you can disagree with me. I look forward to hearing those. Okay.
Oh yeah, just a quick note that as if Kenshi Yonezu didn't get enough work in like big hit anime, now he even gets to put a theme song for a Ghibli film, so that's another notch on his belt.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
Because he's now done theme songs for My Hero Academia and Chainsaw Man. His Chainsaw Man theme song is like huge now.
You kidding me? Okay, cool.
Yeah. He did the Shin Ultraman one too. Oh, I forgot he did that one. That was a good film too. That's another Anno reimagination of a popular franchise.
Yep, he's everywhere. Cool.
Yeah. He's mostly well known for that Japanese song named Lemon.
I'm just looking at some of this. I'm just looking him up, to be honest with you. Yeah, Lemon live from his native Tokushima.
Yeah, Lemon was huge when it came out in Japan.
We'll just look it up later. Anyway, but yeah, a note on the music. Anyway, just a couple of thoughts as we look ahead. This is our first recording of December. Obviously, a lot of stuff has happened in the almost month we haven't been around. It's been a month since episode 86, so maybe we should give some thoughts as to where we'll go with episode 87. Yeah, I know there's other stuff that I know will come up when Mo, Amy, and James gather around the table again to talk a little bit more. Some more Netflix stuff with the Yu Yu Hakusho live action debuts tomorrow on Netflix. So I know there'll be some thoughts on that. Mo has wanted to talk a little bit about his thoughts after watching a little bit of the Scott Pilgrim animated series. Sony's had it. Sony's been in the news for various reasons. We'll talk about that. Whether often PS5 related, but it's also to related digital video services. We'll go there. Evan, I know, wants to talk a little bit more about VTubers.
Yeah, that'll happen at some point. But
yeah.
But I do want to ask you one last thing
before we go tonight.
Yeah,
sure.
Would you put this movie in your top 5 Studio Ghibli list?
Wow. Studio Ghibli or Miyazaki specifically?
Studio Ghibli. Okay, let's do both. Let's do both.
The thing is, some of it's all a blur. You know, it's like the thing is, remember what's in my top 5 or what I would already put among my tops, right? Like,
what are they?
Like Ocean Waves would be in my personal top 5, and I know it's not going to be in most, but if you're on a personal level, it is for me. Maybe things with Kimagure Orange Road, Wonder Years Tones is just right.
Mm-hmm.
Porco Rosso is up there for me.
I still haven't watched that one.
Kiki's is up there for me. Right, kind of underwhelmed by Howls. Not sure where Spirited Away sits. Not totally sure where Princess Mononoke sits. Those are the noteworthy ones. Those are probably the ones that those of us who've kept up with 30 years. And then we haven't gone to Nausicaa. We haven't gone to Totoro yet. And I don't remember them, to be quite honest.
Would you count Nausicaa? Because it's kind of debatable that happened before the formation of Ghibli, if I remember correctly.
Well, then I suppose it's just I can see both sides of that argument because remember Miyazaki also directed Castle Cagliostro, a Lupin movie, right?
Oh yeah, Cagliostro does not count.
No, it doesn't.
That's definite.
Then I guess
it's an amazing film.
Yeah, so. It's just not where does Nausicaa sit? Yeah.
So
it's a tough one. No, it's not really tough. I probably would still put it there. Right?
You would put it in your top 5?
No, I would put it as a Ghibli.
Oh, you mean you put Nausicaa as a Ghibli?
No, not Nausicaa. I see. I'm getting them all confused.
So what I just did was that I wrote down the first 5 Ghibli films that came to mind that I thought were my personal favorites.
Okay.
And in order, I wrote Only Yesterday, My Neighbor Totoro, Nausicaa, From Up on Poppy Hill, and Princess Mononoke.
Okay.
If we exclude Nausicaa, then I would put Kiki's Delivery Service.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Kiki, I actually don't have much nostalgia for. I watched that much later in life. So, well, I'm not that old, but I did not watch that as a child. I didn't watch a lot of these as a child, actually. I didn't start watching most Ghibli until high school, university, actually. I didn't really grow up with most of these.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of where, just to go back to your question, would it be a top 5? When I think of my top 5s, okay, I've already rifled 3 that I really liked, and one of them nobody would ever put there. So Ocean Waves, Kiki's, Porco Rosso, nobody would really think of any of those really being that far up. I don't think those would be in a lot. It would be anywhere close. Would be close to number 1s for people, but they are to me. Howls I couldn't put up there. Spirited Away, as great as it was, I couldn't put it up there for myself. And this is just personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
Mononoke, I guess I could, because of the way of its impact too. At the time it came out, when when I think it was that point, at that moment where Studio Ghibli did get its burgeoning international exposure. Like it was more, it was always niche, and it still kind of remained that way at that point. But it was just really starting to grow at that point.
Now, if I was to just strictly,
Grave of the Firefly sticks out, right?
yeah,
Grave of the Firefly sticks out. So it is borderline top 5 for me. I think I would put it. I think it's at the very least borderline. At least borderline. So
for me, Grave is like a number 6, number 7. Like
yeah,
I would put it just on the cusp of being in top 5, but then not quite there.
See, and that's the thing. I put it on the cusp of top 5. It's just I can't commit to being in or out of it.
Like I do think that Grave of the Firefly is a more impressive film than say like Totoro or Kiki's.
For very different reasons.
Well, I just mean it from like if I had to put the critical lens on, so to speak, but I just wouldn't say it's one of my favorites.
Okay.
If I was strictly going by Miyazaki, then Kiki's then makes the list. And then and then obviously Nausicaa. So it's like I'm just going through his list to see if I really would have played at number 5. And you know what? It really comes down to do I like it more than Spirited Away? Because I'd have Kiki's, Totoro, Nausicaa, Princess Mononoke as 1 through 4, like as 4 of the 5. But then to put, it'd be a deadlock between this film and Spirited Away. Because
I would have to give more thought myself.
Because I don't think The Wind Rises left enough of an impact on me. And I also never... I kind of didn't watch Castle in the Sky all the way through. I saw that in high school, but I didn't finish it. Like, it was like... I saw it through some other way. It wasn't like a sit down and watch kind of thing. So then... I'm reserving judgment until I finally rewatched that movie in one full sitting. And then, didn't particularly enjoy Howls. And never did get around to Porco Rosso. I just keep on missing it.
For me, that's still an easy recommendation, just for sheer fun.
The big holes in my Ghibli viewing list is Porco Rosso and My Neighbors the Yamadas.
Ponyo is for me.
I've watched more than half of Ponyo, but haven't finished it.
And it's worth maybe because I want to watch it also and rewatch the documentary, because 10 Years with Miyazaki is set around the time he did Ponyo.
Because with Ponyo, whenever they screen Ponyo in theaters, it's always the English version, and
you want to see a Japanese version.
I do want to see it in Japanese first before I see it in English. And
Fair enough.
So my Ponyo viewing was through Netflix at a friend's place, and then like I was getting too tired and I had to leave to go home.
Yeah, it's kind of like me now. Anyway, those are, as I said, just some thoughts about The Boy and the Heron, and
I guess it's number 5 for me on a technicality.
It's
like kind of between that and Spirited Away, so I guess it would just depend on my mood.
Well, it's a very let's say an emotional look, but then again, it just it's fine. Whichever way you go, trying to determine it, right?
It really makes me wonder if now I'm just looking at his older films with a reddish tint or something. Like, how is it really nostalgia that's clouding my judgment? I don't know.
Maybe I'm just looking at it as a person, as somebody a little bit older as a fan too.
Because it really is just on top of Poppy Hill that just really struck out to me. Post Spirited Away. That is by far my favorite film. Post Spirited Away.
Yeah. Sometimes, well, I've always said sometimes hitting your peak is the word. Hitting and seeing the very top of the mountain is the worst thing because you can't get any higher, and pretty quickly, the only way is down.
I
And
always kind of saw it as Goro Miyazaki's version of Only Yesterday in a way.
wow,
In
yeah.
a way.
Well, having said all, fair enough. I gotta watch. There's stuff I gotta watch.
I just really love that film. Oh man.
Which one?
On top of Poppy Hill.
You liked it?
I really like it. Yeah, I'd say it's in my top 5 Ghibli films.
Okay.
It's my favorite. It's in my 5 favorite Ghibli films list overall. Yeah. Because how I determine it is what were the first 5 Ghibli films that I would write down. And I would just deem that as my top 5.
Okay, that's fair.
And yeah, Poppy Hill would come up.
Sometimes it's just me trying. If I'm trying to write down 5 names, it's just me trying to remember 5 Ghibli films, not necessarily if they were great. If I thought they were,
because I was like kind of thinking, and I was like, you know what? That was the exercise I imposed on myself to just write down the first 5 films that came to mind, because then that would mean those are the 5 most memorable movies that I enjoyed.
Yeah, well, but
from the studio.
Yeah, but you know what? This debate, it's just going to go on and on and on, and we'll revisit it again probably after either Hayao Miyazaki comes out with another film, or just dies. Just being honest. Anyway, as I said, those are our thoughts. After watching The Boy and the Heron. But what are your thoughts? AnimeRoundtable@gmail.com, at Anime Roundtable on our socials. AnimeRoundtable.com is our website. And of course, we have a presence technically on YouTube and Twitch. Don't forget, as a podcast, leave us a review.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool to do. But if you'll excuse us, it is late enough. I do have one final. I do have either a little bit more getting reacquainted with my PS5, or watching the final episode of Cyberpunk, one or the other, before I call it a night.
I started Pikmin 3 recently.
Now, there's something else. Right?
Oh, I missed Pikmin so much. Oh man.
Oh, I miss playing games on the console. So maybe I'll just do that to unwind for the night.
Because I can only play so much Shin Megami Tensei 5 before I
know. Oh, okay. Give me a thought before I go tonight. If I was to start playing a Persona game, what would be your recommendation as a good one to try first?
Ooh. So strictly Persona, not Shin Megami Tensei as a whole. I'm going to assume you mean just Persona. So, people will say 5 just because it really is just polished so well. They spent years and years and years to make that, so the effort shows. I just haven't played it yet, so I can't technically recommend it. It's just I know a lot of people would. I recommend Persona 4.
Okay, that's all I need to know. And we can talk about the reasons later. Not there yet. But it was just a thought, because I keep seeing those as recommendations. So.
Oh yeah, Limited Run Games is actually doing a physical release of Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden. Those pre-orders ended recently. So, being the sucker that I am, I pre-ordered it.
Fair enough.
Even though I still have it for PS2.
Fair enough.
Because Atlas wouldn't be asked to put it up themselves, so Limited Run Games decided to. Obviously, they struck a deal, of course.
Well, there you go. Anyway, and as I said, this was recording number 1 for December. We know we have one more in us for the month around Christmas. So come on back. I guess it's going to be episode 87, and join us then. Thanks for listening. See you then.
Have a good night.